Hey everyone, and welcome back. Have you ever looked up at the clouds and thought, could sky pirates actually exist? I mean, not just the ones we see in movies and books, but actual pirates sailing the skies.
It really does capture the imagination, doesn't it? And while we might not have, fleets of pirate ships flying around in the clouds, the history of sky piracy is a lot more complicated than a simple yes or no.
Yeah, that's what we're diving into today. We're going to be exploring that line between fact and fiction, looking at real historical events, and even some modern-day occurrences that might make you think differently about what it means to be a sky pirate.
Right. So to start, we have to think about the technology that would even make the idea of sky piracy possible. And that takes us back to the early 20th century, the era of the Zeppelins.
The Zeppelins, those massive airships, they were a total game changer.
Absolutely. During World War I, Germany used Zeppelins for bombing raids, and they were initially seen as almost invincible. This was a new form of aerial warfare, and people were terrified.
Yeah.
Much like the idea of sky pirates, kind of terrifies people today.
Yeah, I can only imagine, the fear that those giant airships must have instilled. But did Zeppelins ever actually engage in what we might consider piracy?
There's one incident that stands out, a totally unique event that took place in 1917. The German Zeppelin L23, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Ludwig Bockholt, encountered a Norwegian schooner called the Royal. Now, this wasn't just a sighting. The L23 actually captured the Royal.
Oh, they captured an entire ship from the air?
Yes.
That sounds like something straight out of a movie. How's that even possible?
It's the only recorded instance of a ship being captured entirely from the air. So the Zeppelin crew, they used this intimidation tactics and a really daring boarding party. So they dropped a bomb near the Royal, which I'm sure got their attention. And then they lowered a small group of men onto the ship using a rope bladder.
So they're literally descending from the sky onto this unsuspecting ship.
Yeah.
I have to ask, what was the reaction of the Royal's crew? They must have been totally stunned.
According to accounts from the L23 crew, the Norwegian sailors just stared at them like they were ghosts from another world, It's easy to imagine their surprise seeing armed men suddenly appearing from this massive airship above them.
Yeah, talk about a shock, but this brings up a really interesting question. Did the L-23's actions actually constitute piracy? Simply capturing a ship, even in such a dramatic way, doesn't automatically make them pirates, right?
Right, that's a question that historians and legal scholars, they still debate it. The lines are really blurry and there's no easy answer.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. What exactly defines piracy, especially in this kind of unique context? And thinking about it, are there any modern-day events that might fall under that umbrella of sky piracy?
Well, while we might not have swashbuckling pirates in the clouds today, some modern activities echo that same spirit of seizing control and operating outside the law.
Okay, so you're saying there are modern-day sky pirates even if they don't fit that romanticized image.
Let's explore that further. We'll delve into some present-day examples that might surprise you. From hijackings to smuggling operations that really blur the lines between criminal activity and what we imagine as sky piracy.
It's fascinating, the concept of sky pirates. It actually predates the technology that would even make it possible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, long before Zeppelins or airplanes, people were already imagining pirates taking to the skies.
I always thought of sky pirates as being tied to those steampunk worlds, with airships and clockwork gadgets and all that.
Right, that's a common association. And those visuals definitely contribute to the whole sky pirate mythos. But the idea itself appears in literature as early as the late 19th century, even before the first successful Zeppelin flight in 1900.
Wow, so people were dreaming up sky pirates before they could even fly.
It's amazing how the human imagination works, dreaming up these things before they were even remotely possible.
Yeah.
But I bet those early stories were pretty wild.
Absolutely. Take, for instance, a German pulp magazine series from the early 1900s. It was called The Air Pirate and His Steerable Airship. It followed the adventures of a character called Captain Moores, the air pirate.
Captain Moores. Sounds so menacing. I bet he had some incredible adventures.
He did, and he wasn't alone. There were other stories and even some early silent films that featured sky pirates. The idea clearly captured the public's imagination, even if it was still purely in the realm of fantasy at that point.
It all goes back to that fascination with those who operate outside the rules. There's something alluring about that rebellious spirit, the pursuit of adventure and fortune, whether it's on the high seas or up in the clouds.
Precisely. And that's a big part of why we're still so interested in pirates, both, on the sea and in the sky. We love stories about rogues, about individuals who challenge authority and forge their own paths.
So even if real-life sky pirates aren't as prevalent as their fictional counterparts, the concept itself taps into this deep-seated human desire for adventure and freedom.
Absolutely, and that's why sky pirates continue to appear in so many different forms of media, from books and movies to video games and anime.
Now let's talk about some of those examples. The list of fictional sky pirates is pretty extensive. Everything from classic literature to modern-day blockbusters.
Oh, absolutely. One of the earliest examples is Rober. He's this brilliant but morally ambiguous inventor from Jules Verne's novels Rober the Conqueror and Master of the World. He kidnaps people and takes them aboard his incredible flying machine. Now, while it's not traditional piracy, it definitely explores those themes of daring exploits and technological prowess.
Jules Verne, he was such a visionary, imagining all these incredible technologies so long before they became reality. Speaking of visionaries, we can't forget Dola, the fierce leader of the air pirate gang in Hayao Miyazaki's Castle in the Sky.
Oh, Dola is a fantastic character. She's tough, resourceful, and completely unafraid. She challenges that often male-dominated image of a pirate and shows that women can be just as daring and cunning.
And she rocks that headscarf like no one else.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't forget Don Carnage. He was that flamboyant, if slightly inept, captain of the Iron Vulture in Disney's Tailspin.
Oh, Don Carnage, yeah. He's a hilarious example of how sky pirates are often portrayed as comical or even, bumbling figures. They might not always be the most successful criminals, but they're certainly entertaining.
Yeah, he definitely adds a lot of humor to the show.
And that's part of what makes fictional sky pirates so appealing. They can be scary, they can be cunning, but they can also be funny and even relatable in their own way.
They're complex characters, just like real-life pirates were.
Yeah. Speaking of complex characters, let's not forget Captain Shakespeare from the 2007 film Stardust. He was played by Robert De Niro. He's a sky pirate captain with a ship called the Caspertine.
Oh, right, Captain Shakespeare, yeah. Now, those are some amazing examples from fiction. But let's bring it back to reality for a moment. We were talking about modern-day sky piracy earlier. What kinds of activities fit that description?
Well, when we think about the core elements of piracy, like seizing control, operating outside the law, seeking personal gain, we can see parallels in a few modern-day scenarios.
Like what? Give us some examples.
One example is airplane hijacking, especially those motivated by political aims or ransom demands. This echoes the idea of taking control of a vessel for personal gain, which is a key aspect of piracy.
That makes sense. And what about drug trafficking? Don't cartels use small aircraft to smuggle illegal substances?
Absolutely. The use of aircraft by cartels for trafficking definitely blurs the lines between smuggling and piracy.
Yeah, I'm thinking about smuggling. Isn't that kind of a modern-day form of sky piracy? People using the skies for illegal profit?
You're absolutely right. Smuggling is a massive problem, and it definitely falls under the broader category of sky piracy if we think about it as using the air for illicit gain. And you wouldn't believe some of the things people try to sneak through customs at airports. It's crazy.
Oh, I bet. And on that note, if you're fascinated by smuggling and all its twists and turns, we actually have another episode all about strange airport smugglings. You'll hear stories that will make you wonder how people even came up with these schemes.
It's a wild ride for sure. You can find that episode right here on our channel.
And we can't forget instances where military or rebel groups have seized aircraft and used them for their own purposes. That has to count for something on the sky piracy scale.
You're right. That's another example of how the concept of sky piracy can manifest in the modern world.
So we have these historical examples like the L23 incident and then these modern-day events that share some similarities but aren't like clear-cut cases of piracy in the traditional sense. It seems like the answer to our initial question, are sky pirates real, is more complicated than just a yes or no.
Exactly. It's about exploring the nuances and recognizing that the concept of sky pirates is more fluid than we might initially think.
It's like trying to define what makes a sandwich a sandwich.
Right.
There's no single definitive answer.
That's a great analogy. And it highlights the importance of context and interpretation when we're dealing with these complex ideas.
Yeah, I love how these deep dives always challenge our assumptions and make us think about things in new ways. And on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep looking up at the skies. You never know what mysteries you might uncover.